and welcome to the writing track here at Continual. I'm your host, Gail Z. And today we are talking about summer lovin' and books that we love to read during the summer. But before we get started, I'd like to ask my wonderful panelists to introduce themselves, starting with Tawdra.
Starting with Tawdra. Great. Hi, I'm Tawdra Kandle, and I write romance, and I have a lot of books spread over several titles and 3 pen names. Well, one real name, which is me, and 2 other pen names that segment out my erotic romance and my paranormal. And I live in Central Florida, and there may be a puppy running back and forth. So fair warning.
Piper?
Hi, I'm Piper Hughley. I just made my contemporary romance debut with Hallmark Publishing. Prior to that, I've had 2 historical romance series that I have published. So good to see everybody.
And Meghan.
Hi, everyone. I'm Meghan Maslow, and I write gay fantasy romance primarily, but also gay paranormal romance and gay urban fantasy romance.
And Stephanie.
Hi, everybody. My name is Stephanie Burke. My pronouns are she and her. I'm a USA Today bestselling author with over 100 books under my belt. So I've written, and I do write in everything from romance, erotica, LGBTQ, sci-fi, hard sci-fi, fantasy, you name it. If it's going to hold my interest and my publisher will let me get away with it, I'll write it.
Fair enough. And Marcie.
Hello, Marcie Rendon. I live in Minneapolis, and if you hear loud noises upstairs, there is a toddler running around up there. And I am currently working on writing crime mystery novels with some children's thrown in once in a while.
And I'm Gail Z. and Morgan Brice. As Gail, I write epic fantasy, urban fantasy, steampunk, and more. As Morgan, I write urban fantasy, male paranormal romance. So, with that topic of summer lovin', what do you like to read when you go on vacation? Marcie?
So I, what I read is crime, mysteries, crime, thrillers, and I think that when I go on vacation, I think there's enough distance from my home that I can read the scarier stuff at that point, because it's like it's not going to happen in my home. So yeah, I guess that's my genre of choice.
Okay. How about you, Stephanie?
I like to read a lot of manga. So manga and comic books, definitely on vacation, I can actually have time to lay everything out and wallow and follow series that I want to. But when I'm on vacation, I also want to do my futuristic or my otherworldly stuff. If I'm on vacation and I know I'm going to a beach, I'm going to read something kind of like Dune, something where there's a lot of sand involved, just to kind of stay with the mood. But if we're going to visit family or something, then I read horror. That's where the horror comes in. I'm going to kill somebody or somebody's going to kill me. Get us out of here. So it changes depending on where we're going, but the manga always stays.
And now I've got sandworms on the beach in my head. Thank you for that.
That doesn't seem very relaxing.
Jeez, and I thought all we had to worry about were sharks.
Exactly.
Well, Meg, how about you?
So I read all sorts of things. I also love a good suspense. But a lot of times what I find is I still read within romance, but I'll read within more the suspense genre of it or the mystery genre of it. So it still has a good romantic element there, but I want some dead bodies on my vacation too. I don't know what that is. Yeah, so that tends to be a favorite. I really, really love to listen to audiobooks. Just put my headphones in, if I'm on a beach somewhere and I've got my headphones in, I am in heaven. Leave me alone. Just come get me in a few hours.
I totally get that. Piper?
I like to tend to read cozy mysteries in terms of that kind of escapist stuff, and sometimes maybe romantic suspense. depending on that, but some cozy mysteries that involve some food element.
I'm with you on food. Tawdra?
I'm with you on food too. Although if you're sitting on the beach and you're really getting hungry, you know, it can be hard. Like, you know, you're reading about food. I will read just about anything any time of the year, but I really love a romance. Lately, I have been, whenever I go to an in-person event, you know, I vaguely remember those where we would get bags with, you know, with books in them. They usually give them to the authors too, and I'll usually take those books and toss them in my beach bag. And then when I'm on the beach, I pull them out. And I also like to go to used bookstores right before I go away on vacation. I know it's like counterproductive because I thought the Kindle was supposed to make it so that we don't have to carry a lot of books with us, but because I have to read online so much, you know, in my day-to-day life, I like to put like old-fashioned paperbacks in my bag. And even if I've read them before, like old school Nora, absolutely. That's perfect for the beach. Yeah.
Yeah, it varies for me, but usually I like to read romance or mystery, something fairly fluffy, nothing heavy or angsty because I'm on vacation. I want suspense, but I don't want, you know, I don't want to be sitting there sobbing under my beach umbrella. So I definitely want this to turn out okay. Although, you know, some tension and suspense is great. And dead bodies always, you know, work, especially if there are ghosts involved. I'm down for it. So yeah, pretty much that's what I'm all about. Now, have you written anything that is set in a place people might go to vacation? Stephanie?
First, there's like a lot of books there. I'm trying to
do 100 books. You got to put them somewhere.
On a Kindle. Put them all on a Kindle. Take them to vacation with you. Read, Stephanie.
100 locations for your book. They have to be somewhere somebody goes on vacation.
Man, but good night. I have written quite a few things. I've written plane crashes. When people
hopefully not, but yeah. Okay.
To vacation and they were crashed and kind of trapped on the Sympathy for the Devil series. Kind of winds up with everybody. It's all about rock stars, and they're on vacation and they crash because they're all demonic. They're all demons basically, and they're trapped on an island with a demon that's bigger and badder than them. But it's funny. It's hysterical, especially when they started getting like their wishes granted and someone's like, I could really go for some fried chicken right now. And like 300 chickens just run across their little encampment. And they're like, where did that come from? And how come they're not fried? So where I write varies from different places to different places. I know I said a lot of things in Miami because my sister lives there. So I spent a lot of vacations down there. So if I want weird and you want to punch people in the face, that's Miami. And if I just want plain weird, I'm in Baltimore. So I'll just write Baltimore. I mean, an alien could land here and it would fit right in. Nobody would ever notice. So unless it's like a major bug up my brain to write something that's set in a really great vacation spot, I tend to not do it because horrible things happen to my characters on their way to vacation. I've had some really interesting vacations over the year. So yeah, and every once in a while I'll put something in a place like Canada, which I love to go up and vacation. Please let the COVID blockade in soon because I miss my Canada so much. But I've said a few things there because I like the area so much. The people are so different. And when you leave the country, that's a whole feel of otherness that you don't get when you say you travel from maybe the West Coast over to the East Coast. There's a different culture and a different climate together, but it's still sameness. And when you go to some place like Canada, the slang is different. Sometimes the language is different. The money's way cute and way better than what we got down here. And there's no pennies and things like that. So it can immerse yourself in that otherness. So when I really want to get something alien like that, then I'll hit a place like that. But generally, people get hurt on the way to vacation. I'm a horrible person.
Megan, how about you?
The only real place I've ever used is Baltimore. So, right? Because anything can happen in Baltimore.
There you go.
My urban fantasy is in Baltimore.
You understand, yeah.
I do. I so do. Otherwise, it's all fantasy realms.
Oh, what's the name of the book?
So it's a re-release coming out on the 10th of August, and it's called The Demons in the Details.
Oh, wow.
Nice. Piper, how about you?
Love Baltimore.
All of this stuff is pretty much set in Georgia or Pennsylvania, like where I'm from and where I've lived. I've never really set anything in a vacation place. I will say that a lot of what I've written is set during summer when it's warm, because weather presents other problems in terms of your writing fiction. So I'm gonna have to work on that, because I'm thinking about how often books are set during the spring and summer. It's like I need a little variety in my next release. But yeah, actually I know that I'm writing a Christmas story coming up, so that'll have to happen anyway. But it'll also be set in Georgia, so unless you're coming here for a family reunion or something.
Some people do go on vacation to Georgia.
That's right.
That's true, they do. But usually they'll go down like to Savannah or the St. Simon Islands or something like that, someplace interesting like that.
Dragon
Not
Where I live.
Have you made it to Dragon Con yet?
Usually when they be pre-pandemic times, when they had Dragon Con, it would always be during the Decatur Book Festival at the same time. And I would always be having something to do with the Decatur Book Festival, so I could never go to Dragon Con. So it may be interesting to see if I can manage it this year.
So Tawdra, how about you?
I thought you said my name, but I wasn't sure.
No, I did.
Okay. Well, if we're going with Georgia, then yeah, I have a whole long small town series set in Georgia. But actually, probably the one that is closest to a vacation setting would be my Crystal Cove romances, which are set down here in Florida. Crystal Cove is a town based on New Smyrna, which you might know as the shark bite capital of the world. So yeah, but it's for me, it's just a small town that, you know, has a lot of romance, and it really is. New Smyrna is a small town that is has a lot of quirks, but you know, the Crystal Cove version of it just has, you know, a couple extra twists. But there you go.
How about you, Marcie?
Well, my Cash Black Bear series is set in northern Minnesota, which is lake country. And so people from all over the Midwest go to northern Minnesota to their lake cabins or some resort or whatever. Although my stories don't have very much vacation-y stuff in them. The third book that's coming out sometime next year, actually part of it talks about Detroit Lakes, which is a big hot spot. They have a Wee Festival, a country western festival, and you know, the population expands into the thousands during a summer festival kind of thing. But I don't feel like I'm writing for a vacation destination. With a friend of mine, we wrote a romance novel and submitted it to, I believe it was Harlequin, and got rejected because they wanted a more exotic locale. And we thought we were being really exotic by having it set at a native casino. And it was like, well, that was a flop.
I've got several series that are set in vacation locations because they were places that I've gone a lot, and so I knew the area. And that's why I picked that area, because it was someplace I was really familiar with. So the Badlands series is set in Myrtle Beach, and the Trader's Trail series is set in Cape May, New Jersey, a different type of beach completely. The Deadly Curiosities series is set in Charleston, South Carolina, which a lot of people, you know, it's a great vacation spot. And the Fox Hollow stories are set in the Adirondacks in New York, which is a place I grew up going camping. And so, you know, really for me, that was a way to weave in some different locations that I was familiar enough with that I felt I could capture the vibe of the place when I haven't lived that many places, they were still places that I'd spent a lifetime doing research on. So, and of course, in the mean, by adding them into the series, I've now upped their murder count exponentially, as well as their, demons and witches and ghosts, because that's what I do.
As one does.
As one does, yeah. So what's the best real life vacation you've ever been on, Megan?
Probably, I spent a month in Zanzibar. Actually, another time I spent 2 months in Zanzibar. So that was a pretty amazing time. And it allowed me to practice my Swahili skills. So that was good. I don't know. I mean, I've had a lot of really great vacations. I guess it depends like what you like to do. I mean, I've lived overseas in a number of places. Oh, you know what I really loved though? I loved Valencia in Spain. I could move there. We went on a vacation to Barcelona and then did Valencia. And Barcelona is such a fun city. But I have to say, after being in Barcelona for 10 days, we decided to take off to Valencia for about a week. And it was amazing. That's like the beach location. I just remember saying to Mr. Maslow, I'm like, if you want to go explore, you go explore. I'm going to be here on the beach. You're going to find me here all the time, right this spot here. And it was great.
How about you, Piper?
Oh, nothing fun like that. I just sort of come to something that brings to mind the trip that my parents gave me and my sister when we graduated, got our masters. We went to Toronto, went to go see a lot of plays and stuff. And Toronto is a very cool city. And to the point where my son, when Stephanie was talking about Canada, always made me think about how he wants to move there, and he's even been rooting for the Canadians in the Olympics. Because he just proclaimed he's tired of the United States and he's not proud to be an American. So I'm thinking about going back to Toronto. That was a really good vacation.
How about you, Tawdra?
I've lived in a lot of different places, and I lived in Hawaii for 5 years, which, when we lived there, everybody said, oh, wow, your life must be a vacation. Like, no, it's it's life. I had 2 kids. I had toddlers over there, a toddler and an infant. So no, that was not exactly a vacation. It was a wonderful place to live. And now I live in Florida, which is another great vacation place, right? So, but really my favorite, not too long after we moved to Florida, we drove across the country with all 4 kids. Actually, I drove across by myself with all 4 kids, and then my husband flew out and met us, and we drove back. And it was really, it was like a month-long vacation. We stopped at Stagecoach in California and saw, an amazing concert for like 3 days, visited family, saw the Grand Canyon, saw the Petrified Forest. It was just really cool. And at that point, my kids were 8 through 19, I think. So it was a great age to share, and we still talk about that. Like everybody talk about driving through Texas, right? Because we like left San Antonio, and then you don't hit anything until you get to El Paso, and the kids still talk about that. They're like, how long it took to drive through Texas. So, anyway, but yeah, that was a great time.
Marcie?
So I was a single mom with 3 daughters and spent most of the years that I was raising them on welfare. So there was no vacations, and I have been just working at this whole writing thing. But back when I had my 3 kids, I was also doing a lot of community activism. And there was a group here in the Twin Cities who did this thing they called it Summertime Santa. And what they did was they gave a week's vacation at a lake resort to a woman who they felt was contributing to the community. And so I got one of those Summertime Santa weeks at a resort in northern Minnesota with my 3 kids, and they provided like the beach towels and beach toys and like a grocery bags of food for the week. I mean, that was it was heaven, because there was no way that I could have ever afforded something like that for me and my kids. And here was this gift from the community saying, you've done good work. Here's what we'll give you.
Oh,
Um,
wonderful.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's awesome.
Cool.
That's
Stephanie, how
great.
about you?
Well, we
Nope.
were poor,
I'm
and
sorry.
I'm still poor. So vacations when I was growing up, my parents would take one day and we would drive out to the eastern shore to Ocean City. And we got to run around for hours. And then they put us in a car and drove us 4 hours back home. So that was vacations for us growing up. We had staycations. We had pool in the backyard. Little, you remember the Kmart pool, little plastic, looked like a turtle? That was us. And we were pretty good with that because most of the people that we knew didn't travel either. When I got to be an adult and realized I was still poor, and now I'm poor with kids, I was like, what are we gonna do? So I'm glad that my sister lived in Miami, because 2-3 times a year I would drive down to Miami and we'd run around the beaches and we would, play on the Ocean Drive, do all the touristy stuff till we got sick and tired of doing the touristy stuff, like years in. So for a while, that was the vacation that the kids knew. And it was great for them because they got a chance to leave the state and they would come back with pictures and shells and things to tell their friends. Had to actually call the teacher because the teacher called my daughter a liar for saying that they were in Miami, and I had to get in the teacher's face. Baltimore City, you don't have too many people who leave the city, especially a certain income. So they were like shocked that, they don't really have much, but they're going to Miami? Yeah, well, you don't have to pay for room and board. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All I had to do was carry gas and what we wanted to do when we were down there. And that's when I first started writing. So I started every once in a while, I got an extra big royalty check. So we did little extra things with the kids, but that was it. As an adult, I think the best vacation I ever had, because when you have kids, vacations aren't really a vacations if you're a mom. You have to pack, you have to make sure the laundry is done, allergy meds and any type of emergency stuff has to be packed, and then you have to mind the children while you're there, and then make sure you can get home. So it's like you come back even more exhausted than when you left.
Yeah.
So I could consider the first real vacation, well, it has to be 1 year, my best friend and their sisters decided they were going to do something nice for me. And they contacted the kids and they drove us all to Toronto. So that was great because I didn't have to worry about money. I didn't have to worry about packing anything other than me. I didn't have to worry about behaving because I don't have to set an example for my kids. My kids aren't there, so yay. But by that point, I was so far away from actually not being a mother that we were sitting in a raw bar in Toronto. I know it's like weird, but there's a raw bar in Toronto. We were sitting there and this guy, we're talking, I explained what I was doing. He's just buying me oysters after oysters, share what you said. It took me until we were about to leave to realize that this fool was flirting with me. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, but the oysters.
And it wasn't until he was like, you want to go back to my house? Your house that you just showed me pictures of in the woods in the middle of nowhere where I don't. This is how horror movies start. But even that was kind of fun because we walked out of there giggling like this guy bought us like $60 worth of oysters, thinking he's gonna piss off. And it's like I didn't realize that's what's going on. So we got there, we discovered the Toronto beaches, where you can actually they have no cover, you can open carry, you can sit around, drink liquor walking down the street, and you can drink on the Toronto beaches. So we caught the ferry over there and we spent the day on the beach. Nobody knew that the Toronto beaches existed. It's something that people who live in Toronto keep to themselves to keep the tourists out, and it's working. So I mean, we went and got fake tattoos, had conversations with the tattooer, hooked up with some bikers and had a really nice long conversation with them. I actually got to run around and do the things I always wanted to run around and do on vacation. It was like, wait a minute, they're funding this. I don't have to worry about money either. All right, am I driving back? And they were like, we didn't let you drive up. You don't have to drive. Oh my God, yes. So that has to be the funnest vacation I ever had.
Sounds like it.
It was great. And I'm like, and that was like my 4th, 5th trip to Canada, because that's as far out of the country as I can go. I'm going to flip it around, go south and maybe hit Mexico one day because I got this passport that's never been stamped because they don't stamp you when you're going to Canada. even though we had like the world's like cutest little guard that was but I got a selfie, so that's awesome. So that has to be one of the best vacations we've ever had. And even when I go with vacation with just my husband, he's like a big toddler. It doesn't matter. No, you cannot do this. We have to be there. No, stop. Let me hold your hand. Let me just hold your hand. So just me with the girl. That was the most fun I've ever had on anything like a vacation. And I'm probably going to write that novel where some child gets drugged back into the woods by a guy who was buying oysters at a raw bar in the middle of Toronto. And it'll probably be like alien invasion, and he's going to take her away, and they'll live happily ever after. Jerk up that horror until we get to that point. So that's like the best vacation ever. 10 out of 10. Want to do again, and we can. I need to find that dude again. Maybe we can get him.
That's right. Shoot. That's hilarious.
For years, in fact, just until the last couple of years, because of the current unpleasantness, we've gone back to Pennsylvania to a pond that's on what was my in-laws' land. And my mother-in-law was one of 5, and they all stayed in the area. And so all the time my husband was growing up, he and his cousins would camp all summer long down at the pond. And every weekend, all the aunts would bring out like a hot covered dish, and there'd be a picnic at the, on the tables, and the kids would play in the pond, and the dogs would run, and everybody would sit around and play cards or sit and read in a lawn chair. And we're kind of coming to the end of an era now, because that generation is gradually not with us anymore. Yeah. But those are some of, I think, the best memories, because it was spending the time with family. My kids got to know their cousins who were spread out across a number of states. And there were moments like, the kids would be out in the pond with a floaty noodle, and our previous golden retriever took his guard dog responsibilities very seriously. So he would swim out and rescue them and haul them back to the shore with, he'd bite the noodle and then he'd haul them back to shore. And you just see this look of exasperation on his face when they would swim back out. And it was like, kids, I'm telling you. Come in and look, they're back out there again. And they would see how many times he would rescue them. Poor dog, he's like exasperated. He'd look at us like, aren't you going to do something about them? They're out there again. Of course, there was also the sleeping in the tent with 2 kids in sleeping bags, one who was young enough to be in a porta crib, and 2 dogs in kennels in a tent in the rain when it leaked. Oh my God. So there were memorable moments. And let's not even mention the mosquitoes. But there were a lot of good covered dinners and s'mores and hot dogs around the fire. And I think, it's kind of cool to have given the kids that all those years when it was a very simple vacation to do, but everybody remembers it. So have you ever sent one of your characters somewhere on vacation? Or if you did, who would you send and where would they go? Piper?
The characters don't usually go on vacation. I was saying Sweet Tea because my main character has to go back home, so it is a vacation from her work. Where's home for her? Well, she lives in New York City, and then because the dude is, or the documentarian is down in Georgia, she thinks is harassing her grandmother for her recipes for his documentary movie and cookbook, thinks she used to go back to Georgia and stop this guy from doing what he's doing. So yeah, she has left home and gone back there for that. So yeah, I guess that counts. It took me a minute to think about that. I just never thought of it that way before, because she was going back home to have the story play out. So I didn't think about it as like a leave taking.
Did you put a recipe in the book? Did you put a recipe in the book?
Yeah, Hallmark has a recipe in every book. So yeah, so there's because there's a scene where the hero has to audition with the grandmother to show that he knows what he's doing in reference to cooking. So she charges him to make biscuits. So it's a biscuit recipe.
I blame y'all for that because y'all were talking about food earlier. Now I'm hungry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Tawdra, how about you?
Yeah, actually in one of my paranormals, it's called Stardust on the Sea, actually. And it's in the middle of this really, it's a novella in the middle of two really tense books, and the character who is kind of the she works at the foundation that is sending these people out to stop the end of the world as we know it, and the people who she works with, who are her family, they insist that she go away on vacation because she's a workaholic and she would never ever leave, and she's so pissed off that they have sent her on vacation, and they send her to Cape May, because I grew up in South Jersey, so I was at Cape May all the time, and we had friends who had a house down there. So it's like, oh, that'll be fun. I can, do that. So, she's on the ferry and she's plotting how she's going to, escape and go back. And they put her in this inn, which of course turns out to be haunted. And she also decides, so she mixes a little work with pleasure there, and she also meets a necroloquitor while she's there, who is somebody who talks to the dead, and she does manage to have a little bit of romance too. Although she thinks that she's found her one and only, and it turns out that something bad is going to happen to him after the end of the book. And we find out later what it is. It's not eternally bad. It's just temporarily bad, but he's not. So anyway, yeah. So that was a lot of fun. I love to to have an excuse to write about Cape May and enjoy that.
Our oldest daughter got married in the restaurant there at the ferry station in Cape May, the new one, because it looks out over the bay, and it was a beautiful place for a wedding, which is how I fell in love with Cape May.
Yeah.
Marcie, how about you?
In my adult novels, there hasn't been a vacation. My children's book, Powwow Summer, nonfiction, we followed a family who goes to powwows every single weekend throughout the Midwest here. And it sounds like the camping trips that other people have described. You go, you camp, the family all together dances all weekend at the powwow. And that book actually was picked. They did a thing here where they have a floating library. And so people, because Minneapolis has, I don't know how many lakes in the city itself. So like people will go out of the lakes in canoes or on their floaties. And that book, Powwow Summer, was picked to be a book on the floating library that people could check out and read. That's cute. That's the closest thing to a vacation. I mean, other than the rejected romance, where casino wasn't cutting it and the lodge in Montana was not a thing. So maybe that one will come back in some place.
Stephanie, how about you?
Right off the top of my head, with a few minutes of thought, the best vacation story outside of them crash landing where the island of wishes, was an alien actually vacationing here on Earth. And the book was called Phil Con or Bust, because I was huge. I love Phil Con, and they like me there. So okay. So my alien came down to blend in with a sci-fi convention that was happening in Philly. And of course he's like, oh, I'm an alien. I don't have to hide my tail. I can just wander around and nobody, people were like, really cool costume. And while he was there, he met the most perfect trans woman that he had ever met. And her claim to fame is she tells people, I just have a really long clit. I'm not getting bottom surgery. I have a really long clit. Deal with it. And these two hook up, and it's nothing because the people from his planet come in all types of body configurations. So that's nothing for him. What is bad for them is the death panel that followed them down to try to kill him. And the fact that Earth has been invaded, and they're hiding the invasion by just having communications and meetings in a series of sci-fi and anime conventions. So I had real fun setting a book basically in the environment of a sci-fi convention. So everybody's walking around. So he's walking around going, oh, they're from Sector 7. And people are looking, what is he talking about? No, I'm from Naruto. Oh, I'm sorry. So when he wanders over to the human side is when he actually meets these people. And it's just a hoot because he's confused and they're confused about him. And when a huge sword fight breaks out in the middle of the convention, instead of running for cover, everybody gathers around and you'll have those critics like, oh, that's so fake. That's not really happening. So all these little personalities that you meet at conventions, I had fun mixing them all in and tossing them around in the book, including the hyper intelligent people. I keep friends who are really smart because when it comes to math, I'm an idiot and I have equations to work out. I can hand them to them and they'll explain it to me in a way that I could use. I had to throw the math heads in there too. So it was an opportunity not only to have fun playing the other, so everybody's a fish out of water except the people in the convention, which is always fun. But I also got to throw in some science and incorporate some of my friends that I always know that are always at PhilCon, especially a lot of the vendors, because they were like hitting that vendor hall hard. So I think that was the most fun because the most ridiculous, stupid, and crazy thing would be accepted because it's a sci-fi con. So somebody's running around half dressed, no problem, it's a sci-fi con. Bunch of alien people looking like they're arresting another guy and dragging him off. Sword fight breaks out in the middle. Oh, it's a con. You know those swords aren't real. They're peacetime. You know, they're blunt. And they're probably not even real metal. It's a con. Nobody cares. So I just kind of blended everything that I've always found fascinating and enjoyable about cons into this and just had a complete blast with it. And I want to do, that's like the second time. The first time I based a book, wasn't even based in, it started off at the Ren Fair because, you know, they know me at the Ren Fair. So my geek flag waves high and I don't care who sees it. So that, but this one was actually set to be a vacation. And of course, when everything is said and done, he's like, I'm going back to my planet. I'd like to take you with me. And she's like, I'll go with you. And he's like, yeah, I can't wait to come back for vacation. And she's like, you want us to come back here? I'm leaving. I don't want to come back. And she's like, well, separate vacations. That's how relationships last. So I just had so much fun writing that. And yeah, that was just, now you make me want to write something about another one. I might.
How about you, Megan?
My characters have definitely never gone on vacation, but I can tell you right now with my sense of humor that one of two things would happen. They would either be going to a really, really like the idea of paradise and something terrible would happen there. Something really, really awful would go wrong. Or if I didn't go that route, it would be that they were supposed to go on a great vacation and they ended up in the wrong destination. And it's a really terrible place. You know, because I mean, my characters got to torture them a little bit. You can't have them too comfortable. I like a lot of external plot going on. So, you know, make them uncomfortable, make them have to react to their surroundings. So they're never, my poor characters are probably never, ever getting a relaxing vacation with a drink on the beach. Like that's never happening.
It's an opportune time for conflict. So, you know.
That's when the sandworm comes out.
Exactly. That is so true. I'm going to write that in a book.
I've been part of a shared world series with Nancy Northcott and Ginny Adams and several other authors where we built this fictitious castle in England and a whole fictitious town to go with it. And then we did a Christmas story there. We did a trick or treat story there. And this year it's a New Year's story there. And each time I've taken a different couple from one of my series and created whatever situation sends them over. And of course, they happen upon ghosts and magic and dead Knights Templar and missing treasures and all kinds of things because it's never a relaxing vacation. But that's been really fun because we all share the same castle and the same big holiday event. So there's a lot of coordinating that has to be done to make sure that like the 30-foot Christmas tree doesn't move all over the yard because we need to know where it's going to be so that we don't all describe it differently. And the magic gargoyles and all those other things. So that's been fun because it is sort of a fish out of water to send the characters somewhere else and see what they do in this new place. And some of them are more familiar to traveling than others. So it's interesting with the relationship dynamics, because if one partner has traveled a lot and the other person's never really been out of the country, they're gonna see and experience the trip differently. So that's been a lot of fun, just because you get to see the characters out of their normal setting and facing some different things. Well, folks, we have blown through the time as usual. It has been so much fun, but before we go, let's go around and quickly tell everybody where they can find you online. And if you have a new book coming up or a recent release or a pre-order, tell us where to find it and what it is. Starting with you, Piper.
Okay, my social media stuff is at Piper Hughley. That's on Twitter, where I tend to hang out the most. Piper G Hughley on Facebook. Piper_Hughley on Instagram, which I'm coming to learn slowly but surely. I'm going to make my way over there. And my website, which is getting renovated, piperhughley.com. And Sweet Tea is my latest release. As I said, it's my contemporary romance. It's my first one that's set in my fictitious world of Milford, Georgia. And yeah, it's a foodie romance. So yes, there is a lot of food in it, and you should have a snack if you're going to read it. And it is available on all online platforms, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, Apple, all of that, and at Target and some Walmarts.
Awesome. Megan?
So I'm Meghan Maslow on pretty much on, Facebook is where I hang out most. I have a reader group there. I have my author page. I've got my personal page there. I also do Insta. I'm not much for Twitter, although I have it and I do check in occasionally, but I'm much more of a Facebook person. And my website is just www.meganmaslow.com. I have a re-release coming out for The Demons and the Details. Again, it's urban fantasy set in Baltimore. It's coming out August 10th. And I'll have a fourth novel in my Starfig Investigations series coming out at the very end of September. So I'm finishing that up now. I'm getting ready to get that off my plate. So that's
cool. Stephanie?
Okay, you can find me at authorstephanieburke.online. All my social media links are there because I can't remember who I am from one to the next. So you can just hit me up there. You can find me there. Book links to the stuff that I'm self-pubbing, also the things that come from my publishing house. The latest thing I have is the second book for the Coven series. The Coven series is Gargoyle Shifters. So I have Gargoyle Shifters from another dimension here. They have jobs. They're doing stuff. They're slaughtering people. It's fun. Hard body count. It's kind of bloody. But it's my one gargoyle with her 7 men. And the next book that just dropped about maybe 2 weeks ago, is Unis, which is the first part of the prequel to these books. And it tells, I'm going through each 7. So each of the guys will have their own books, how they met her and how they deal with that. So the one is called Unis, and it just dropped about 2 weeks ago. You can find it at all the platforms, Kobo, Amazon, Apple, whatever else the publisher decides to throw at it. I just sit here and write and hope and pray that people buy. That's what I do. But you can find me there at authorstephanieburke.online. It's under renovations right now, but we are updating it as we go. But all the social media information, all the important stuff is there. So yeah.
Marcie?
The most recent book is the Girl Gone Missing novel. And then the third book in this series, which is tentatively called Sinister Graves, will come out in 2022. And yes, that's that. What else?
Where can we find you?
social media. That's where my brain was going there. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And I think that just about everything is Marcie Rendon, one way or the other. And then including my webpage. It's marcierendon.com. And the books are available in bookstores, online. Yeah.
Okay. Tawdra?
My website is tawdrakandle.com, candle with a K. But basically, if you go on any platform and just spell my name, I will come up. I am the only Tawdra on like 20 pages of Google so far. So it's pretty easy to find me. Thank you, Mom and Dad, for that. And this year I've been doing a fun project to keep me busy, and I release a short in my Love in a Small Town series, and each one is holiday themed depending on the holiday in the month. So we've gone through, New Year, Valentine's Day, St. Patrick's Day, etc. So the last one was Make Me See Fireworks in a Small Town, and that came out at the beginning of this month. There are none coming out in August because there are no great holidays in August. And anybody who wants to fight me on that can, because I also found out that I'm moving this month. So I'm so glad there's no holidays in August. So the next one that comes out will be at the end of September, and it's called Fall in Love in a Small Town. So there'll be one in October, one in November, one in December, and then we've got a whole year. So that's what I'm up to.
You refused to labor on Labor Day. Oh no.
That's right. I think Labor Day is actually in September this year.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I
So,
think
I was like, whew. I'm like, no, there's no holidays in August. And I said, anybody who wants to try to tell me there is, fight me, because
Well, I could, but we're supposed to be signing off, so.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I'm pretty easy to find also as gailzmartin.com, morganbrice.com. All the social media works off of those names. I have some new stuff coming out in August. The Blink, which is the next Treasure Trail book set in Cape May, and Gruff, which is Goat Shifters in Love set in Fox Hollow in the Adirondacks. Very studly goat shifters, by the way, I'll let you know, and a Tennessee fainting goat. And then Legacy, which is the next Deadly Curiosities book that is set in Charleston. So I've got some new stuff coming up. Well, folks, thank you so much for being with us tonight. And thanks all of you for watching and listening. There'll be more books and romance and adventure coming up here on Continual. So we'll see you online.